have this stain can here. I want to make a lid for the can, and I don't want it to just set on top to where it can slide right off. So what to do is cut out a channel that will fit, that the inner metal ring in the top of this can will fit down into, so that the lid doesn't just slide right off. It makes a little more sense just to watch what I'm doing versus me trying to explain. It's a little difficult to explain, but you'll see. I use the paint to mark the ring where I'm going to use my generic Dremel tool to make a channel in the underneath of this lid that I'm making. And you can see that it does make the lid more secure. It doesn't just slide right off, but of course if you turn it upside down it will come off. I gave the can a little bit of a sanding so that the paint would adhere better, and I'm just going to paint this with Ivory Chalk Paint by Waverly. And I stained the lid with Antique Wax. You can see there on the underneath of the lid where my hand did slip with that Dremel tool and made a little bit of a mark there, but that didn't bother me any. Now to use this extension cord, I'm going to make a handle for the lid. And I'm just taking a piece of the extension cord, and I'm going to use these tacks from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to tack that down. These come in a nail set. They're sort of like upholstery tacks. The tips of those upholstery tacks did go through the lid just a little bit on the other side, so I just took my wire cutters and snipped off the very sharp point and sanded them a little bit. I got this napkin in the mail from Kathy Jo. Thank you, Kathy Jo. And I'm going to use this, this top layer here. I'm going to use the water method so that the edges are feathered instead of using scissors. And I'm just going to Mod Podge one section of these roses here. And I'm going to do this twice, one on each side. I'm being a little risky here by using my fingers to smooth out the napkin. If you do this, you want to make sure your fingers are dry whenever you're smoothing that out. If they're wet at all or have any Mod Podge on them, you will tear your napkin. Where I cut that extension cord, you could see the wire on the ends there, so I did go over that with a little bit of brown paint to try to disguise that that is a piece of an extension cord. I did go over the edges and a little bit on the image itself, just trying to blend in this napkin, using that ivory chalk paint to try to blend in the image and the background of the image to the painted can. I actually decided not to distress this can, although I thought about it. I thought it looked just fine as it was. This, I believe it was tuna fish, either tuna fish or crab or chicken. I can't remember now. There's a little food can that I've washed and kept, and I pushed some floral foam down in there. And I'm also using this 18 gauge wire that I got from Walmart, and I'm just showing you here on the Walmart app. It costed $4.28 for this roll of it, and it really didn't take much. I have a lot more wire for future projects. And I'm cutting some pieces into just over a foot length. I like this gauge of wire. It's thick enough to where it holds up and it doesn't bend too easily, but it's also very easy to bend by hand and very easy to cut. So I think, if a person had maybe arthritis, or just, not a whole lot of strength, I feel like, they could still work with this wire quite easily. It was very easy to work with. I'm just taking these pieces and pushing them down into this floral foam, and I'll be securing that a little more later on. But it's obvious here I'm making a little bird cage, and the idea here is for it to not look perfect, but it to look a little bit whimsical. I'm taking this much thinner wire here and going to secure the top pieces, make them all the pieces together here, and just wrap that around and around until they're all sort of locked in place. I'm taking the hot glue and just generously going around where the wire, goes into this can here, and letting that set up, and I'm giving it a coat of this spray paint from Walmart that I got that's called Champagne Bronze by Rust-Oleum. And now I'm going to make a little chandelier to hang inside of the bird cage. And I'm just taking that same 18 gauge wire and cut 3 pieces. You could also use fish hooks. If you had like large fish hooks, you could sort of snip off the sharp pointy end and use one of those for this, because when I got done with it reminded me of fish hooks. But just taking 3 of those, and I'm going to secure it with tape before I wrap some wire around that to put those 3 pieces together. I have this old necklace here, and I'm going to remove some of these little beads, and I'm going to hold them up here for you to see them a little more clearly. I thought they would be good to be sort of the candle cups on this chandelier, and I'm using toothpicks, just regular old toothpicks, to cut down to make the candles. I used E6000 to put all that together. It's holding up very nicely. And I also put this bead on the top of the chandelier. It just seemed like it needed to be finished off with something. So I added a little bead on the top of the chandelier. And then I'm also taking a larger wooden bead, and I'm going to put that on the top. It's going to act as sort of like a finial to the top there. And I also just went ahead and put that wire through that was holding the chandelier as well. And I wanted to wrap that around. I didn't want the chandelier just to be glued, and so I didn't want the bead just to be glued. I wanted it all sort of be attached by wire as well. And so I did that, and then I just added a couple of extra pieces of wire just to make it look more like it was on purpose, and it wasn't, just to sort of make it look like it's whimsical, and just sort of like, quite a few wires up top, like it's purposeful. And so I did that, and I just added some little extra pieces of wire that were bent in the top there, just decorative, with some E6000 that I put down in the hole of that bead. I went out and gave that a coat of the gold paint just so it had a cohesive look. And I wasn't going to do wicks on the candles because they're so tiny, but I just couldn't stand it that I could tell that there were no wicks on the candles. So I went and got just some white thread and some glue and just held the little pieces of thread on there till the glue set up enough to where I could pull the tweezers away. And then I don't regret doing that. I think it does look better with some little tiny wicks on those little teeny tiny candles. The birdhouse needs an inhabitant, so we're going to put a little nest down in the bottom of the bird cage here, just with some Spanish moss from the Dollar Tree. You could, get some vines or some, bendable, malleable sticks or something and make a much nicer looking nest. But I like these Spanish moss nests pretty good. So just for our bird, I'm just putting a little paper bird inside of there. So I had some small scrapbook paper, some little 6x6 sheets, or they might have been 4x4. I'm not sure. But now I'm just going to make sure that it's double-sided, and I'm also going to sandwich a piece of wire down inside of that bird so that we can stick the wire down into the floral foam so it'll stand up there inside the nest in the center. I decided that the bird would look better with some wings, so I'm just using the same paper, and so that the wings would stand out and you could actually see them, I took a stain pen and I'm just going to outline that so that it'll pop off of the bird there, and just gluing that as well with some glue stick. I did decide that the candles would look a little bit better white. I don't know if I don't know. I went back and forth on that. I kind of liked how they looked gold and everything was the same color. But I did think that it needed a little bit of trim around that can, so it looked a little less like a can. So I added some Dollar Tree ribbon there to just outline the top. And that's it for this one. I just love this one. It's so pretty. And it is a little bit whimsical, sort of like how the pot, the moss pot was whimsical as well. So I really like these crafts, and I hope you enjoyed them as well. From the Dollar Tree for this. Of course, I'm making 2 of these. You could make as many as you want. You could, make a lot of these for very cheap. All 3 of these crafts today were just super cheap and really easy to do, but I was glad for that. But I'm just using a tuna fish can, and then this smaller can is from the Dollar Tree. It had a lid on it, and I don't know where the lid went. It looked like this. But I'm going to use it to make 2 different sizes of these. I knew that I was going to like these. I liked the look of them. And so I am going to cut off the bottom of each circle and just eyeball it here. And I wanted to show you what I was going for. I think they're called feed scoop candle holders. I think that's what they're called. I think if you search that it would come up with it. It has like a heat guard. It's like a candle holder with a heat guard. That one's made from an actual tin scoop. And then some people just try, some crafters on Etsy sell these, some primitive crafters, and they're just going for the feed scoop or a scoop look. and then of a candle holder that's used to be a scoop. I think that's correct. If anyone has any information on these, you could leave them down in the comments, and that would be very helpful, like what people could search for if they just wanted to buy these instead of making them. This, of course, is going to be half plastic, and so you wouldn't want to put an actual real candle in it. So that's the downside to these, but they still turned out really pretty. I'm using some E6000 on the spots that really mattered, and then a little bit of hot glue to glue these to each can. And I let these set up overnight so that I could, handle them and not have to worry about the glue coming up, and so that it was, permanently fixed so I could paint these. I'm using Waverly chalk paint in the color Truffle as a base coat. I like to use chalk paint on metal and plastic because it adheres pretty well as opposed to the thin acrylic paint. But I did want a metal look, and so I'm using the Folk Art Aged Copper. I picked that up from Walmart, and I only did a coat of that. I wanted it to be a little bit streaky and for the truffle to show through. And I did give it a little bit of the antique wax. Now, I was attempting to make a keyhole hanger on these. I'm not actually going to hang them up. They're going to just be shelf sitters. But, of course, I made the hole not in the center. And then I tried to fix it, and then it just went downhill from there. It looks like it used to be a keyhole hanger, and then it just, the metal maybe deteriorated. The more I chomped away at it, it just sort of tore the plastic instead of doing a clean cut like the first few cuts that I made. So that didn't work out so well, so I didn't even attempt the second one, but you can see what I was going for there. It's still, it still fit the piece. It still worked. It looks okay. And this isn't the most realistic decoration. You would not want to put very dry grass around a candle that you would light, but I thought it was cute. And so you're not going to be able to put a real flame candle in these anyway because the backing is plastic. And so this is just for decoration purposes. These would be so cute, and I will be decorating these for Christmas to put some Christmas greenery in here, maybe some berries, and maybe making some more. I might be making some more of these to have a whole bunch of them because they were so cheap and easy and quick. We don't have a garage, so my laundry room is sort of a catch-all for various things. And I have a very high up shelf where I'm going to be keeping my cans of paint, and I have a lot of cans of paint. But I'm just going to measure the cans that I have. I have a lot of these quart cans. You can use plain paper, or they have, if you want it to be a craft look like I did, they do have legal size craft paper online, but it was pretty pricey. So what I just did is I took the roll craft paper from Dollar Tree and I traced around legal sized pieces of paper and used them to print my labels onto. I used double-sided tape to attach them so they could be easily removed in case I needed to access the directions on the paint can. I just love how even though I have to store these paint cans in here on my new shelves, that I can make them fit the theme and not take away from the look of the pantry area. Have a couple of these laying around up in a closet or in the attic. It's just a couple of popcorn tins, a larger one and a smaller one. I got these from a yard sale. They were very, very cheap. I can't remember the price. But I'm just going to give them a base coat of some Paint Plus primer. It's just what I had in white. I did run a sanding block over these, I forgot to mention, before I painted them. I try to do that with everything I paint, if I can, if it won't mess up the finish. But I have this contact paper from the Dollar Tree, just one roll of it, and I'm going to apply it to each of these cans. Now, if you do this same thing, the same technique, learn a lesson from my mistake, and where the lid goes over the tin at the top, don't put contact paper there. Like, let it stop short where the lid is going, the edge of the lid is going to cover it. Because once I got this covered in both the contact paper and the tissue paper that I'm going to put on it, it made the lid have quite a tight fit, and I have to push down kind of hard on it, which it works fine, but if I could go back in time, I would not put the contact paper underneath where the lid goes down. I have this craft tissue paper, and I got it off of Amazon. I know that there is a pack of tissue paper at the Dollar Tree that does have a sheet or two of brown tissue paper in it. I've bought that a couple of times. They usually keep that in stock, even at the worst Dollar Trees. So I'm just going to Mod Podge that over this contact paper. The contact paper is beautiful and it looks fine without it. You do not have to do this step, but I like for things to look old or vintage. It just matches my decor and my house, but you do, whatever matches your style, and you can cover it in whatever contact paper you might find, even at Walmart or other stores. With the larger tin, I used Mod Podge, and whenever I'm Mod Podging tissue paper, I don't care about wrinkles, and occasionally it'll even tear, but then you can just go and patch it back. If you're going for a vintage vibe, if there's a couple of little mistakes on it, it just matches the piece. But for the second tin, I tried out this spray adhesive that I got from Walmart. There's the SKU number, so you can find it if you'd like. And this stuff actually worked a lot better. For some things, Mod Podge works great, and then, for some things, the glue stick works better. It just depends on what your project is and, what you're doing. But the spray adhesive, I would definitely recommend for this particular project. It worked out really well for this, and the tissue paper turned out really smooth on this smaller can. I won't make you watch me cover the entire both of these lids, but I just wanted to show how I did each one. I just tried to make the circle a little bit smaller than the top of the lid, and then I used the spray adhesive on both of the lids because at this point I figured out that it worked much better than the Mod Podge for this project. For this other one, it had a groove in the lid, in the top of the lid, and so just using a piece of paper, I created a template for myself, cut that out so that I would be able to cut out a good, nice fitting circle of the craft paper. And I'm just showing you here on the sides of the lids, I just went ahead and just accepted that there was going to be folds. You could cut slits all the way around and do that, but you're going to have some overlapping, whether it's folded over or just overlapped from your cuts. It was just the way it was going to be. And then whenever I got done Mod Podging the top and the sides, I had that excess and I went ahead and burnt that away, and it worked okay, but I think using a razor blade probably would have worked even better than this technique. Whenever you're using fire in crafting, if you do, Always make sure to have water, you know, right next to you, and plenty of it to be able to throw on there in case it gets out of hand. And I would never light anything too big on fire. But I also had my front door open. Where I was crafting was right next to my front door at my table. And so I was prepared to just chuck everything out the door if I needed to, if it, you know, caught on fire. And I had it standing up on top of a bottle here. I don't have it, you know, on fire directly on the cardboard there. It just looks like it from this angle. But for this, I would probably just use the razor blade because I had to clean up those edges, you know, after it burned. I had to clean it up. I had a good bit of cleanup to do. But I'm just showing you here that where I didn't have enough paper to go down over the side of this lid, I just patched. And anywhere where the tissue paper came up short, or I missed a spot or whatever, I just patched it, as well as the bottom, along the bottom rim there. I just took a long strip and Mod Podged that on there, and it looked totally fine doing that. Where I used Mod Podge on one tin and then the spray adhesive on the other, it did make a color difference. You can see that the Mod Podged one looks darker, the flowers look darker, and the one with the spray adhesive looks a little bit lighter. Looks more like a dark gray than a black flower. So I just wanted to show you that if you do two different, you know, what would that be called, a medium for adhering your tissue paper on there, it might affect the color, but they still match, you know, enough. The smaller one looks a little bit lighter, but I did go over both of them with a coat of Mod Podge over the top as well, just to seal that in. I have this tuna can here. It might have held something else like crab meat or something. But I also have these stickers. I wish they still sold these. Sometimes when I look at some of these older crafts, I think, oh, I wish they still sold this at Dollar Tree. But I haven't seen these in ages. But these self-adhesive half round stickers here, I just measured halfway up the can and stuck those around the whole outside of the can. Then I spray painted it with hammer copper, as well as a canning ring, and I'm going to glue the canning ring to the bottom of the can there, and that's going to hold the vase in place. And I'm going to be using this vase from the Dollar Tree as a candle holder, and this one is still holding up well 5 years later. I have it in there and I use it occasionally, like when the lights go out and I get out the candles, I get this one out as well and use it. I still like the way it looks. It sort of looks like a nod to an oil lamp. Now, if you go and look at any of the playlists that I have and you want to watch some of them, I took out those torturous videos that are in there, and I apologize. I did not realize how bad they were. So, you know, the 5-year-old videos are not in the playlist anymore. Saw on Pinterest where someone took a can of Libby's pumpkin puree, and you know, it has a picture of a piece of pumpkin pie on the front, and it is really cute, and they used it as a vase. But when I went to get myself a can, I saw this farmer's market brand at Walmart, organic pumpkin, and it was a little bit pricey, but I thought the label was so cute, and so I got this, and I made a pumpkin dessert with the pumpkin and then kept the can and cleaned it out. I ended up using a sponge pouncer brush to apply some antique wax, and I put some floral foam in the bottom of the can. I am not good with floral arranging, but I did my best, and that's it for this one. For this one, I have this food tin can here, It had either tuna fish or crab or something like that in it, one of the shorter kind. And I also have a canning ring. You just need the ring. And I took them outside and spray painted them with hammered copper by Rust-Oleum. I used that canning ring as a template and just cut some cardboard down to where it'll fit inside of that canning ring. I have some fabric here. This is actually an old shirt that I had that I didn't want anymore, and I'm just going to be using a small piece of this. I made sure to cut out where it would be one of those roses there in the center. I'm cutting my piece of fabric down even more, but I'm making sure to leave some excess. I began gluing down my fabric to my cardboard, but I'm making sure to tack it down loosely. I want it to, be fairly loose on here because I'm going to be stuffing this with some polyfill. As soon as I got that as full as I thought looked good, I went ahead and closed that up. I'm making a pin cushion here. That fit nicely in the canning ring, and I just used some hot glue to secure that. Now I can keep the straight pins in the can and then use the top as a pin cushion. This is an older craft from my channel, several years old, but this piece is holding up nicely. I'm still using it today. Here, either one would work. This had some Minwax stain in it, and I just cleaned it out with some Dawn dish soap and gave it a coat of metallic champagne bronze from Rust-Oleum. I will have this as a printable in the description box, and you'll want to print it on a legal size piece of paper, or you can do like I did and use one side of a legal size file folder from the Dollar Tree. I like that it's a cream color. I saw this antique can from some Squirrel peanut butter, which is apparently a Canadian brand of peanut butter. I don't know if they still make it, but where I found this image from was from a really old can, and so I just took that imagery and made this printable. I did want to age it up just a little bit, so I took some antique wax from Waverly, and just you can age it if you want, or if you like it to look more new, you can leave it and not age it. I am showing you some supplies here, and I didn't use most of them. I only used the fur fabric and the peanuts, but I was just showing that instead of fur, you could use a bath mat from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to make, it sounds ridiculous now that I'm saying it out loud. It didn't seem ridiculous in my mind or while I was doing it though, but I'm making peanut squirrels. Squirrels made out of peanuts. Yeah. And I just thought it'd be really cute. It's Squirrel Peanut Butter is the brand, and I thought it would be cute to make some squirrel picks to go into the floral arrangement that's going to go in the peanut butter can. So I'm using the fur here, cut out a rectangle, folded it in half and glued it to itself. Trimmed it up, just trying to think of what squirrels look like. I'm going to glue that together at the top where that looks bad, where it's kind of open there. And I thought about using a tiny nail for the nose and making whiskers and all that, but I decided just to draw faces on them, and so I just used a Sharpie marker to draw on their faces. And I also made them some little acorns to hold, and I made those out of oven baked clay, but you could use any clay that you have. I just rolled a little, oblong shape out of the clay, and then made a little circle and squished it, and then, put that on top for the cap. And you could do googly eyes, you could, just use your imagination if you, are weird enough like me to make this. I just thought they were really cute. But, and I'm just going to use some of the shell to make the arms. And with the label, I just wrapped it around and then hot glued it to itself. And so it's not glued to the can, it's just closed up and, just glued the paper there with some hot glue. I did make some little sticks to come out of the top of the acorns, and just used, a little skewer stick there and just hot glued those on there. I used truffle for the caps of the acorns, and then I used a lighter brown for the bottom. I'm not sure what color that is, but just any 2 different color shades of brown would work. You could even do lighter on the top. I've seen it both ways. I found it was easiest to just glue the acorn to the body first, and then to glue the arms, on after, making it look like they are holding the acorns. At first, I tried using felt to make the arms, and they looked super weird. So I just decided to use the shell, and they were actually pretty sturdy, the shell arms there, and they matched the body, which makes sense. I probably should have went there first. I also made feet from the shell. I just thought they looked a little odd without feet, but optional. And then I hot glued them onto skewer sticks from the Dollar Tree. I painted the skewer sticks with some truffle paint from Waverly, and I also made sure to get that large amount of hot glue at the top that was holding the squirrel on there. For this one, I'm going to be using 2 of these cans that had the hazelnut rolled wafers from the Dollar Tree. One of them I'm going to put a little knob on the top, and I'm going to make that out of a wooden bead. I'm going to fill the hole in the wooden bead so it looks more like a solid piece. And I just used wood filler for that. Once that wood filler dried, I just sanded it lightly so it would be smooth. I used E6000 to attach this little knob. Now I don't use this little knob to take the lid on and off of the can, but this is an older craft on my channel, and I'm still using these. They're still holding up, and so this E6000 does a good job with keeping that knob on there. The one with the wood bead on top, I gave it a couple of coats of Heirloom White by Rust-Oleum, and then the other one, I gave a couple of coats of black spray paint. I got this vanilla label out of an old book from the 1800s, and I just went into Photoshop and sized it down to the right size to look nice on the front of this tin can. I didn't do a very good job on the piece for the lid, and I liked that P on there. It looked kind of old-fashioned, that letter P, and so I decided just to leave that label off of the top. And I just used Mod Podge to attach the label to the can. And I do still use this can to store my vanilla extract and some other extracts that I have. For the white one, I'm just going to use some of these rub-on transfers from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to sort of layer these rub-on transfers until I like the look of the sort of label that I'm putting on the front here. Then I aged up the can just a little bit with some antique wax by Waverly. I hope you guys liked this compilation video today. I was unable to get a video done to get crafting done this week. I just ran out of time. I had a lot of other things going on, and so I thought a compilation video would be better than not putting out anything at all. And there's quite a few older crafts in here, and some of y'all might not have seen a lot of these. But I appreciate you watching today, and I hope you have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.